Hello and welcome to Ethan's Garage. Today you guys join me in Zagreb, Croatia, the capital and biggest city of Croatia. A very fun, smaller European nation. Not the absolute car mecca, but there's definitely still some nice stuff here. So let's dive in and see what we can find in Zagreb. This here is always a good sign that you're in Eastern Europe. The Lada Niva SUV. Obviously this is Russian. A fascinating vehicle. It's a little 4x4. And they've been making this essentially unchanged for like, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. I've noticed that Volvo SUVs are definitely one of the more popular large cars over in Europe. I see quite a few of them over here. This is a car that I could see do well in the US. This is the Toyota Yaris Cross, a new offering from Toyota. They now have an extensive lineup of small, compact SUVs. Nice vehicle here. Panamera GTS. And it looks like it's maybe slightly lifted or something, maybe in high ride height or something. So this here caught my eye. This here is the Opel Omega, but it's a car you might have seen in the US before, not as an Opel, but as the Cadillac Catera. So this thing was rebadged and slightly changed, not much, to be a Cadillac. Back when they were trying to get more younger buyers, they've tried like 50 times at this point with mixed success. But very solid European car for sure. I always get excited to see these, and honestly they look really good, and I'm a big fan of the Cadillac Catera as well. This here is another Renault in a strange shape. I don't think this is actually the Renault Espace, but Renault Scenic, which is sort of like more of a smaller, large hatchback MPV type thing. But yeah, interesting shapes always at Renault. A fairly fancy car here for Croatia. The new Maserati Grecale Trofeo, which I think is it's like the 2.9 V6. As you can see, the streets here are just gorgeous, awesome architecture, and that looks almost like it might be the Italian embassy. Imagine if you could time travel and explain to Pablo Picasso that he would be the namesake of a semi-frumpy Citroen. I do kind of like them though. And then right here we also got a very fancy Croatian car, the Mercedes S-Class Coupe. And like so many cars out here, it's D-badged. I don't know which model, but probably the V8, like the base model. And right here we have the iconic Berlin Wall. Well, just kidding, no it's not. This is Zagreb, but it is a interestingly tagged wall, which is a good part of the Eastern Europe aesthetic. Check out how cool this bike is though. Royal Enfield with the Himalayan trim. Now that's a definite go around the world kind of bike. This here is pretty unique. It's a thermometer, I believe, that I guess continually tracks the temperature and writes it on this paper. Thought this was just a regular old Skoda, but as you can see by the one blue light on top, this here is actually an unmarked police car, which is always interesting to see how they do it in other countries. A lot different than the US, that's for sure. This here is the Nissan Micra, a very common and very affordable car over here in Europe. I think this is somewhere in like the $10,000 range, maybe even a little cheaper sometimes. Actually, when I used to be a valet in Southern California, I actually drove one of these once, which I was super excited by from Mexico. It was actually a rental car that someone had driven up from Mexico. But over in Mexico, they actually renamed it to the Nissan March, which I guess probably they did some studying in the Mexican market and discovered that just works better as a name there. So, kind of interesting. So over here in Europe, they still have the Ford Fusion, but this is actually the same car as the Ford Mondeo, but it's actually a hatchback. This here's a pretty fancy car, the Lexus LS500H, which in the US these are like, I don't know, 110 grand. And I'm guessing by the plates this is a diplomatic vehicle or government vehicle. There's a little flag spot in the hood there. I think actually all these might be. I think this is all government buildings. But yeah, interesting plate there. So I'm certainly a little bit of a license plate spotting nerd as well, which you may have noticed already from these videos. So I've been trying to incorporate some of that stuff because I know there's a lot of folks out there who like that kind of stuff. But I was going to mention that the Croatian plate's got to be one of my favorite of the European license plates, up there with like Slovenia and Austria. Like that, I'm not sure the name of that pattern, but that sort of checkerboard pattern is really lovely. Also, this here's a old Ford Mondeo wagon with, of course, a manual. This here is the latest generation of the Ford Fiesta, one which we never got in America. But sadly, because Ford is a bunch of idiots, they have even discontinued their small cars globally. So the Fiesta and the Ford Ka, which is even smaller than this, have been discontinued everywhere, not just in the US, which I think is just absolutely nuts. I really just do not like the direction Ford has gone in. But on some lighter news, check out this funky Renault. It's, I'm not sure what this is actually, but it's kind of like if an egg and a Pontiac Aztec had a baby. All the plastic cladding, definitely some early 2000s-ness there. It says RX4 on the side. Ooh, it even has the spot for the spare in the rear. Renault Scenic. Now that is funky. Now that I see this Tesla Model 3 here, I'm realizing that I've actually seen very few Teslas over here in Croatia, which I'm fine with. Also, Mazda Demio. Now this is nice and fancy. Mercedes CL. Basically just an S-Class coupe. This is quite fascinating too. This is a car I see all the time in the US, but a car I actually didn't really realize they sold in Europe. There's a lot of SUVs that people think aren't sold here that are, like Jeeps are sold here extensively. But my first time, at least that I can remember, seeing a Nissan Pathfinder, which I would assume is probably diesel. I've noticed throughout Europe, although there's still a lot of white, silver, black, gray cars, they're a little bit more interesting when it comes to color, generally speaking. Like this Renault Clio right there. And there's been lots of kind of like orange cars, red cars. You know, still not amazing, not the 50s in the US, but better than America right now, which, you know, I'll take what I can get. Speaking of color, we got the multicolor purple and green color shift wrap on the Cayenne. Right here we got a model Dacia that I actually didn't realize they made, the Dacia Spring, and this one's even EV, which is interesting. Not my favorite, but interesting. This here is a solid spotting. The Jaguar F-Type, this is the facelifted one, in British Racing Green over tan interior. This here's a Fiat something. I'm actually not sure if I recognize the model. I was gonna say Seicento, but Fiat Uno. Also, you may notice that a lot of the Croatian plates are the EU plates, which is pretty abnormal throughout the EU these days. So I'm here at the central train station here in Zagreb, and I'm hoping you guys like trains as well as cars, because this is a really cool spot for trains. Got this old locomotive right there, the incredibly tagged cars over there. Also, you can just walk onto the platform, which is a bit different than a lot of other areas. Plus, we got the old locomotive right there. It's got to be probably the coolest train yard I think I've almost ever been to. And it's awesome to see them actually actively cleaning and not really restoring, just maintaining this old locomotive right there. Nice to see. And then plus we get this interesting, some kind of sculpture right there. Surprised by how extensive these unmarked cop cars are. They're kind of everywhere. Speaking of cool older trains, they have a really cool old tram system here in Zagreb. Well, it looks like I've located a properly fancy car. Only problem, if you really call it that, is, as usual, it has German plates. We've got right here the Aston Martin DB9. Always a gorgeous sight to see. This is the DB9 Volante too, aka just convertible. Good looking car. The second Aston I've seen today, actually. I did see a DB11 earlier, which I forgot to mention. We got some very interesting cars here. This here is the Lancia Libra with the manual. It's also the wagon. Lancia, I mean less so now because it's really just under Stellantis, but makes some truly unique looking cars. Just look at the face on that. And then we have, of course, the Mercedes S63 AMG. Amazing. Also this little Brabus center cap, which I like. Great car right there. So if you guys like this video, which I'm hoping you do if you're watching it this far in, please do make sure to subscribe. It really does matter enormously for small channels like mine, and really all channels. But whenever you have under 1,000 subscribers, you'll never get paid, even if your videos do incredibly well. So subscriptions do really help, and it's one of the only ways to actually see my videos in future. Also, if you guys have any recommendations where I should go to next and do more car spotting, let me know. I am always down to travel to new places and check stuff out. It's amazing over here how many of the Toyota models that in the US are gas only are offered in hybrid, including things like this CHR or even like the Yaris, which talk about great at gas mileage, like half the size of the Prius, at least for the Yaris, and hybrid. I think it must be great. Not bad. We got the Z4 M40i, which is actually made quite close to here over in Austria. Nice Panamera, looks almost like a e-hybrid, and then some kind of V8 Cayenne, also made very close to here over in Bratislava. Awesome sounding car though. This here is one of my favorite models of Audi, the little Q2, which is such a great little packaging design. So I've already pointed out one of these Fiat Seientos before, but this is the Fiat Seiento Sporting, which is just the coolest thing ever. Talk about a tiny little hot hatch, and it has Enzo wheels. Awesome, awesome car. And as usual, like every other car over here in Europe that's German, completely debadged, but nice looking 7 Series. Plus we got the BMW X5 M50D, another model that we don't get in the US, which is the sporty, maybe even V8 diesel, not sure, someone can correct me in the comments. But that is just amazing. Nothing like sporty diesels. I find these somewhat compelling too. The Dacia Jogger, very much kind of like a Subaru type thing. Another car that many Americans yearn to own, the Suzuki Jimny, basically just a tiny little Jeep or G-Wagon. Always nice to see old cars out here. I'm wondering if that's an old like 70s, 80s, probably more like 80s Volkswagen Jetta. There's a lot of very nicely designed grand roundabouts here. Also, Mercedes CL. Not bad. One of my favorite cars in the world here, the 100 Series Land Cruiser. Guessing it's probably diesel though, given it's in Europe, because boy do they get bad gas mileage with the gas engine. So this here is well actually I have no idea. You know already, I'm impressed. It's, I'm guessing, some kind of Chinese car, but one I've never seen before, which there's always seems to be more of them. It's a 4-thing DFM. Interesting. Looks kind of like a ripoff of a Macan, a Ford Puma, and Maserati Capale. Well, you see something new every day. This here is the RAV4, which, you know, same generation as it would be sold in the US, but they gave it a very different face here, which I don't love. It's always amazed me when I first started coming to Europe, seeing how many Jeeps are here. That one even has the gas engine. And in a sea of fairly boring Fiats like the one I'm driving, we got the 595 Abarth. Now this is something you don't see too often. Obviously, Volkswagen Tiguan, not my favorite car at all, but it has Russian license plates, which obviously, since the war with Ukraine, has become quite uncommon here. Last time I think I saw a Russian plate was probably Montenegro, and before that, actually, Los Angeles. Something very different with European Mercedes is they have base model steel wheels, which you never get in the US. And just like that, it is time to wrap up the video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I always love being here in Zagreb. It's an awesome, awesome city. Just gorgeous views, just great everything, really. It's just an awesome place to walk around. But I hope you guys have liked the cars as well. There's always some interesting ones. And I'll be doing a lot more of these videos over here in Europe, and I've already done a whole bunch of them, so I'll link some of those below. But make sure to check that stuff out, and I will see you guys in the next video.